Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry. My wife Irene and I live off-grid on a 43-acre homestead here in northern Arizona. Our house is about 1 mile above sea level, so it's reasonably high altitude. Today's been a bit of cooking. I just finished with some banana bread. I had 3 bananas that were going to spoil, so this loaf is just cooled off enough so it won't steam up the bag. I don't want there to be a lot of condensation in the bag because that will cause the banana bread to spoil faster. Now I'm going to actually cut some of this up to freeze dry, well, because I can. And we do like it in a freeze-dried form. But in the meantime, we'll have some nice banana bread to eat. And today I'm going to show you how I make French toast. French toast in French is called pain perdu, which is lost bread. And why does it mean lost bread? Well, because French bread is normally consumed the day that it's baked. If you let it go another day, then it starts becoming stale. And if it goes too long, it becomes really rock hard. Well, I have some bread here that I bought at a grocery store. That is a French loaf. Noisy, isn't it? It's pretty hard. Well, let's see if there's any softness further on in this loaf. I'll cut about ½ an inch off and see if there's any moisture left in the center of this loaf. May not be. Oh, there is a little bit. Well, you may wonder, do I have to use French bread to make French toast? Well, the answer is no, you don't. You can make French toast simply with ordinary sandwich bread, but I'm going to go ahead and cut some French bread here to make the French toast. I'm cutting 2 different thicknesses here. You know, one of the things you could do to control the calories in a meal is controlling the amount of carbohydrates, the total amount of bread that you eat. So I have 2 different thicknesses of bread. Now I need to get mixing up the batter for our French toast. Well, here's how I make the batter for my French toast. I have 2 eggs here, 2 large whole eggs. I whisk them together until they're well combined. I don't want any white or yolk to be completely separate because I want the French toast to be pretty uniform. Now I have a ½ cup, about 125 milliliters of heavy cream. This is, in the US, we'd call it whipping cream. And this is really the secret right here. That whipping cream makes the batter be thicker. Now if we were to use plain milk, ordinary milk, this batter would be a lot thinner. And if you look at it, it's pretty goopy. It sticks together, it holds together. I'm just making a small batch here so I can show you exactly how I do this. The temperature of the griddle is important. You want a drop of water going onto the griddle to kind of instantly turn to steam. Now what I do is I take one of my pieces of bread. This is again the day-old stale French bread. And if you see, there's not a lot of liquid running off it. Put that right onto the griddle. Get the next piece coated and put it on. Now, I just need to wait until this is cooked enough. You have to have a little bit of experience keeping track of how things are cooking and when they're going to be done, but it's perfectly reasonable to flip this French toast up so you can see how it's browning. Well, let's take a quick look and see how this French toast is doing. That's nice and brown, golden brown. There are a couple of things to draw your attention to. One is, this is a nice pattern of golden brown with cooked egg underneath it. So you can see it, it's great patterns. Some people have asked, or some people have said that they get the wrong kind of bread. Well, I can tell you that you can use pretty much any kind of bread to make French toast. And the question is, do you like the taste of it? Now, each one of these different breads will have a slightly different taste. Let's see how this is doing now. I'll let it cook a little bit longer. Once this French toast is done, I'll go ahead and use this piece of a sandwich loaf. It's an ordinary white sandwich loaf. You could use whole wheat if you wanted to, if you like whole wheat. You could use a sweet bread if you wanted. You could use sourdough. I happen to like sourdough. Irene doesn't care for sourdough French toast, so I don't make it very often because I don't eat much of it. Well, let's get a plate so I can put these things on it. There's one, and there's the other. I like the looks of both of those pieces of French toast. I like both sides of it. I'm going to go ahead and put my sandwich bread in. And this is where using the heavy cream really comes into play. If you look, I'm still not having a lot of liquid draining off. And it's not gone into the bread very far. And one of the things you might have noticed is that these two pieces of French toast, which are different thicknesses, cooked in the same amount of time. And the reason for it is most of the batter stays on the outside of the bread. It barely gets inside the bread, which is part of the trick. Let's see how this one's doing. Again, that looks great. We have a nice brown color. We have cooked egg in here. So we'll just wait for that to finish, and then I'll cut both of these in half so you can see what they look like. I want this to cook a little bit longer. I want it to dry out a bit. As I said before, this day-old French bread, the stale French bread, didn't absorb a whole lot of the egg mixture. The sandwich bread, which is a white bread that is very thin and very soft, does absorb more moisture. So it does take a little while longer to firm up. And this is firmed up nicely. I'll turn off the stove and move these over to the cutting board. Well, let's take a look inside these three pieces of French toast. This is the ordinary sandwich bread on the right hand side. Now, if you watched our shows last week, you know that I made almost a complete loaf of this kind of bread. If you look in here, just the outside edge has batter on it, and the inside is moist because the steam from the batter went inside the bread. Now, I can freeze this up and it defrosts just fine. Let's take a look at these other two. Remember, these are two different thicknesses. And again, very thin coating of the batter, and the inside is moist. It isn't gooey, it's not soaking wet, which is part of the trick. Well, there you have some French toast. It didn't take very long to make. Tastes just like French toast. It is French toast. The French bread tastes different because it has French bread. This is an ordinary U.S. white bread sandwich loaf. Not really great bread. It's all right. All said and done, gathering all the equipment together to make the French toast, setting up the camera, changing positions for the shots, I've spent less than 15 minutes making this French toast. It's easy. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It just takes a little bit of thought. Now, what am I going to do with the leftover batter? I'm going to add some sugar to it. I'm going to cut up some of the leftover French bread, and I'm going to turn it into some bread pudding for Irene. That's the nice thing about some of these different things that I make, is the same base gets used multiple different ways. Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications because we're doing a whole lot more stuff. Irene's down in the studio again with Rufus. She's working on a custom project for a customer. I'm trying to get a few things done up here. I've been doing a lot of dishes and cooking and putting things in the freezer for freeze drying. We'll catch you on the next one. Don't forget to brainstorm. I am. I'm sure that Irene is too down in the studio.